Oh, hey, we're live. Okay, there it is. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and it is Saturday. Every Saturday and Sunday, we do a live 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every Saturday is educational, and sometimes we touch on a little bit of business. And every Sunday is Write a Book with Me, Concept to Conception. Today, though, we are back at it, and we are going to be rewriting the first couple prose of Dune by Frank Herbert. If you don't know who Frank Herbert is, I can't help you because I don't know who Frank Herbert is. No, all right. I'm just trying to get set up. I had to run downstairs. I was upstairs and I was like, oh, it's almost 2 o'clock. I gotta get down there. I don't want to get yelled at. But I don't mind I don't mind being held accountable though. All right. So where are we at? Okay. So Frank Herbert, I don't know if you know, he published Dune in 1965. I was exactly negative 13 years old, so I wasn't born yet. But Frank Herbert is known for writing science fiction, and if you don't know the Dune series, it's pretty wild. There's a lot of stuff. There's worms. That's better. There's Atreides, you know. There's a lot of stuff going on. Hey, ciao bello, what is up, Emma Salve? We are back. Morning, y'all, morning, what is up? So today, we are going to be diving into what I love to call writing. All right, boop, boop. Here we go, let's get right into it. Okay, so as always, hey, it is as written. So the good news is, this is not about look at me write. We are never. What is up, flowers? I love the new photo, by the way. Very good, very good. My mom was 13 when Dune was born. That's there we go. So she's 13 years older than me. So this series is not about look at me, I can write, or hey, I'm gonna write it better. This is not what the series is about. The series is about taking an exercise to really discover what your voice is, to hone your voice, to practice taking what's already established, understanding the context, the subtext, the plot, etc., and then putting it in your own voice. Now, I've done this a few times already. I think this is number 6. We're on number 6. Pretty excited about this. Ultimately what I do is I set some parameters. The first one being I'm going to try to write it in the tense that it's written in. So if it's written in past tense, I'm going to write in past tense. If it's written in present tense, so forth and so forth. All right. The other thing is I try to maintain the plot. So whatever the plot is, whatever's supposed to happen in that scene, I'm going to keep that. My adjustments are going to be my voice only, right? So we have to really understand it. Everybody's saying hello. Flowers, thank you for watching my videos. Emma's got some really great videos. She talks about her adventure in writing, and she also gives some advice. Also, she has yet to send me pizza. All right, so more importantly, what is my voice? So let's understand what that is before we get into this. If you haven't seen this series yet, my voice is usually cinematic, lyrical. I try to jump on the lyrical elements. I'm a big fan of character first, right? And I like to move narratives through the characters and their experiences. So I like to be a little bit more physical, all right? But one thing I will say, though, is let's rolling. I'm trying to look up something here. Third person. Okay. Boop, boop. I'm trying to look up something because I want to talk about it because I love you guys and I want you to understand what's going on. All right. Anyway, all right, I can't find the thing. I had some notes. I wanted to talk about some notes, but anyway. All right, with that said, let's get into it. So we're going to read it, and we're going to try to understand it, and then we're going to make some choices. And that's, by the way, that's the important part about being a writer. Making choice. Don't drink Gatorade after you brush your teeth. Okay. Being a writer is about asking questions and making choices, right? So whether those choices are good or bad, that's subjective. But ultimately, at the end of the day, confident writing. I don't know if you've ever had your stuff studied or people give you feedback, but confident writing is that you're making very distinct choices. There's a lot of active instead of passive structure, centers, etc., etc. All right, so let's get into it. Right off the bat, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to include this. This is sort of like an aside. This would be like a title entrance. Like for me, if I have a title on one of my chapters, I might have like a quote under it from a god or something like that, or a faith within the book. That's ultimately what this is. A beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. This every sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. To begin your study of the life of Mundanbanaba, then take care that you first place him in his time. So all this is sort of like, this is like a statement of, so we're actually going to start where the narrative starts. Oh, what do we got here? Don't drink Gatorade unless you keep your teeth in a glass. That's funny. It's all I have. I don't have any soda today. All right. In the week before their departure to Arrakis, when all the final scurrying about had reached a nearly unbearable frenzy, an old crone came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. It was a warm night at Castle Caladan, and the ancient pile of stone that had served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations bore that cooled sweat. Cooled sweat? Feeling, am I saying it right? Son of a dyslexia. I think that's sweet. No, it's sweat. Yeah, I was right. My brain was right. Okay. Sweat. Feeling it acquired before a change in the weather. The old woman was let in by the side door down the vaulted passage by Paul's room, and she was allowed a moment to peer in at him where he laid in bed. Ooh. By the half-light of a suspensor lamp dimmed and hanged near the floor, the awakened boy could see a bulky female shape at his door. Oh, hey, we're going to have to... I want to bring up, so there's stuff I want to talk about. A bulky female shape at his door, standing one step ahead of his mother. The old woman was a witch shadow. Air like matted spiderwebs hooded around darkness of features. Ooh, that's a good one. I like that. Eyes like glittering jewels. Is he not small for his age, Jessica? The old woman asked. Her voice wheezed and twanged like an untuned balisette. All right, so a couple things. I actually want to talk about this a little bit. Let's break this down a little bit. All right. By the way, there is a poll. Feel free to answer the poll. First and foremost, this is what we might call filtered. Hey, you're filtering. Hey, don't write see, saw, could see, could hear, listened. Remember, it's purposeful choices. Just because somebody tells you you can't use something or you shouldn't use something, it doesn't mean that it's forbidden. Also, I had no idea that Frank Herbert was using AI. This is a shock to me. I'm going to have to take a moment and drink more Gatorade through the taste of teeth. But just to handle the fact that Frank Herbert... in 1965, used AI because there's an M dash. All right, let's get that out of the way. Also, I love this. All right, we've talked about world building, and this is a really great example of world building without an explanation. You don't have to explain your world through exposition. You need to show your world through the experience of characters. So the way we use terminology, our slang, how we greet people, that is the physical representation of that culture without exposition. This is like an instrument. It's like a Dune instrument. Untuned, so that's a context word. Untuned balisette, right? So you have to In this case, what I love about it is it doesn't become an aside. So that would, if it did, we'd be missing logical narrative. Like we'd be like, what are we doing? Why are we explaining this? It wouldn't make logical sense for narrative. But they are useful as I see myself using them, and I immediately think, can I rewrite that? Flowers, just in case the we might be behind on what I'm seeing and hearing and experiencing. Can you just give me the context of what you're saying with that question? I'm sorry. I'm my brain between drinking the Gatorade through toothpaste to brush teeth. All right. Thou shalt not build machine in the image of man. Listen, that war was terrible. All right, so we got that down. We got that. All right. What is ultimately happening? Again, Frank Herbert, by the way, excellent author. This is from '65, and it's still written very well. It holds up today in I would say more contemporary style where it's moving, things are happening. It's not a massive exposition dump. There is telling, though, in the week before the departure to Arrakis, when all the final scurrying about had reached nearly unbearable frenzy, an old crone came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. So, the was and could see, etc. The was. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yes. They are useful as I see myself using them, and I immediately think, can I rewrite that? That is actually, as an aside to what Flowers is saying, that's a good way to approach your writing. Not in the first draft per se, but when you get to your cleanup, your second, third, maybe fourth draft, when you're doing line editing, listen, heard, saw, seen, looked, smiled, like words like that. You can say to yourself, is this doing the job it needs to? How many times have I really used listened, looked, turned around, saw? Could I change it up? Do I need to change it up? Because sometimes simply just getting it out is more important. Like we've talked about names. Should I use the person's name or not use the name? Use the person's name. The goal of writing is clarity. Without clarity, we can't understand what's going on. It slows down the read. That has nothing to do with pace, but it slows down the read as in like, what are we reading? Makes it confusing. So it's okay sometimes to just be as quick and straightforward as possible. When I run for the bus, I am an M dash. Does that make me meaning I am using? It means that you are AI. Okay. We have discovered it. All right. Another thing. What do they always tell you? Don't use long. This is considered a complex sentence, and it's mostly because there's more than one. It breaks it up. It's it's obviously one long. How long is this sentence? How long is the sentence? 32 words. This is a great first sentence, and it's telling. And I'm the first one to be like, if you could avoid telling, you should. But in this case, it is doing something. It's creating the movement of the camera. This is probably the most telling, right? In the weeks before their departure to Arrakis, right, when the final scurry had reached a near frenzy. This is what makes it so good. An old crone came to visit the boy, the mother of the boy, Paul. Everything is right there. It's directly in there. That's a pretty good opening. This is also so again. Look at it. This is two sentences. His first two prose are two sentences. So to give you an idea, obviously this is 1965. So things change, it evolves. But even if we look at this third passage, this third prose is its own sentence. And this is two sentences. And of course, this is three sentences. It's all about purpose. It's all about how you utilize the structure. So this is his voice. He likes these long, complex sentences, these multi-dimensional phrasings, where this sets up in the week before their departure, this sets up future things that's going to happen. Arrakis will depart. When all the final scurrying had reached nearly unbearable frenzy, this is alluding or ceding to something of the battle, right? Right, and then this sets up exactly where we are. This brings us to the present. So this is the future, right? This is what basically had led to the choice to leave, and then now we are in the present. That's a really strong opener, and it's one long, complex sentence. So it's a pretty good, tight thing, and it also sets up our main protagonist, Paul. That's a lot of work for one sentence, but it's earned, This is more, but again, this is more. You know, this is telling. It was a warm night at Castle Caladine, and the ancient pile of stone that had served the Atreides family as home for. By the way, hey, don't use the word as, okay? You gotta be careful with the word as. Write at your own peril, okay? Enjoy, write, get it out. Worry about that stuff in your line editing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying. All right. As home for 26 generations, bore that cooled sweat feeling it acquired before changing the weather. So this is nice. This is atmospheric. It is telling. We've learned that Paul is most likely attached to the Atreides family just because of context, right? Context clues. We're learning it's 26 generations, so we know there's a massive history to this world. We understand the location, Castle Caladane, right? Caladan, whatever. Okay, now we are back to the old woman. The old woman was let in by the side door down the vaulted passage by Paul's room, and she was allowed. Okay, don't use the word was. That's another example. People say, hey, don't say was. Don't say was. You know, it's poor writing. It's a weak word. It's a weak word. But again, if we look at this, I think was only comes up once, right? Was. So it was. The old woman was. She was. You know, the old woman was, right? Oh, look, the old woman. Old woman was. Old woman was. They do it a couple times, right? Again, this is Frank Herbert, and it is from 1965. But at the same time, if it moves through the narrative, if it flows, if the writing is saying something and doing something and keeping your attention, that's important. I only read the first Dune. Got to get back to sequels sometimes. Messiah is pretty heavy. That's a good. I believe that's the second one, but Messiah is pretty heavy. But I also like the whole Worm God storyline. But anyway, so what am I doing right now? I'm analyzing what is on the page and understanding like his choices, so I can take what he wrote and sort of put that into my own voice. And I'm also trying to get some ideas of what's going on. I already think I'm going to follow the old woman, and I feel like I'm going to try to take this and seed this in there because, again, I like to be more cinematic and moving through the characters, and then I like exposition seated and sort of laid out slowly. So I'm not really a fan of exposition dumps. I don't mind reading it in other people's works. That's not a big, but for me, like I personally, part of my author's voice is I don't like exposition. This is without a doubt. What is this? 69 words. You know. All right. By the half light of a suspensor lamp. This is more world building. Dimmed and hanging near the floor, the awakened boy could see a bulky female shape at his door. All right, standing one step ahead of his mother, the old woman was a witch shadow. World building. All right, like matted spider webs, excellent visual. Hooded round. I like that he used the shorthand round. Grammarly would be like, "Hey, you got it. That's wrong." And he'd be like, "Grammarly, you don't understand creative writing." All right, because Grammarly and like Quillbot and all that, that's for like paperwork, you know, doing writing, you know, articles and stuff. Darkness features eyes like glittering jewels. This is a fantastic visual, just for the record. I might even just take that and just put that in bed. All right. Is he not small for his age, Jessica? All right. Just so everyone understands what's happening here, why this is such a strong first dialogue moment. First of all, we've been following the old woman. We know that they are going to talk to Paul, mostly because Paul's name is mentioned twice. Okay? So we know that the old woman is talking about Paul, but we also don't know who the other woman is, which is the female. We know that it's his mother, and the mother's name is introduced through the interaction with the old lady, which is Jessica, but we don't necessarily directly get the old woman's name yet. So that's so good. And the other thing is, like, you know how they say don't go ham, you know, don't go over explaining when it comes to you know, like how someone's talking. Just be like, they said. But the thing is, if it narratively adds, if it narratively moves something, if it narratively explores something, if it qualifies, evolves, or explores something, because remember the rule of long logical narrative movement, then it does. So the old woman asked, this is qualifying, and more importantly, it's expanding on her voice, which is her saying something. So now we have context to how she sounds, which is obviously an immersive good part. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it down here because I'm not gonna use the that thing. I don't care about that. All right, here goes in the weakness. So I'm gonna start with the old woman. I want to get her hair in there. Hair matted. Oh wait, we don't go. Yeah. The old woman walked slow, confident, unbothered. Of the heat. Okay. Ooh, we got some stuff. Let's see. I've watched both the new Dune movies. It's well made and thought out. I love the final confrontation between Atreides and Harkonnen. Yeah, that was pretty good stuff. It was pretty fun stuff. I think the quality of the new movies definitely surpasses the '80s version, and definitely the TV version. There was like a TV series kind of thing. I also don't like the new show. The show was so boring, but I do. The visuals and the quality of the movies are up there. Again, I'm more of a fan of the books, but again, the final confrontation was botched. It was one of my main problems with the movie. It happened way better in the books. That's what I'm saying. Like the book, but again, it's the books. The books are gonna always. All right, let's keep it going. The old woman walked off, slow. Actually, I should say, walked off confident, slow, and unbothered by the heat of Arrakis. Alright, pile of stone had served the tree. Actually, I'm going to trade his family. His home for 26 generations. I'm taking that, but I'm going to do this. The old woman walked off, confident, slow, and unbothered by the heat of trees. The pile of stone before her held. Oh, so the pile of stone before. Laid the foundation of the castle. Oh, actually, what I could do, the foundation of Castle Kaladin. Alright, blowing out around the landing pad. Alright, now remember, as we're writing, normally what I would do, this would be a first draft. I wouldn't be editing in real time, but I'm showing you like my process of cleaning things up and going back. So the pile of stone before her laid the foundation of Castle Kaladin. It served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations. Alright. Feeling it acquired before that. The old woman was okay. cooled. The old woman cooled in her sweat. The change of weather. Teasing. Under her robes and around her hood. All right. So I'm basically trying to create the opening through her going from the ship to the house, into the house, and I'm still keeping a little bit of mystery. But so far, what I've done is I haven't added this per se. I probably will start adding a little bit of that next because I'm starting I'm going linearly. You know, that's because again I'm trying to write cinematically. I try to write like I would see a film or a television show. So I don't really like narrative and stuff like that. You know, overdubbed like it was 4 generations. You know. Anyway, but we got the castle, we got the stone, we got the Atreides family, we got the 6 generations, we got the weather. So I did all that in this. So let's see where I'm at. So far, I'm at 89, and this is what 69. So I'm a little longer, but again, when you're writing more immersive or more through character movement and behavior, and they're experiencing it and maybe processing things, it's going to be slightly longer. But again, I choose to charge my word count for that purpose. Okay. The old okay. I carve stone against stone, drilled out as the door opened in front of her. As the boop, 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 side door open in front of her, leading down the vaulted passage by Paul's room. Okay. Ooh, what do we got here? Hey, what's up? Hi, just wanted to bump in and say hi. My mother's doing a whole lot better. That's amazing. Congratulations. I'm so glad that. And I've decided to turn my Sleeping Beauty and Yu-Gi-Oh! Retelling into a Christian book series called Cursed Lies and Waiting for More. That's amazing, my friend. Keep that up. It's all about writing. Yeah. All right. But on a serious note, I'm glad that your mother's doing better. I know you've been talking about that in comments and stuff like that. So, kudos to that. Let's see. Stone called against stone. Drilling out as the side door opened in front of her, leading down the vaulted passage. In her crossing, she peered at him only for a moment, laying on his bed. Okay, what else? Oh, you got more? Enchanted slumber. Oh, it's Cursed Lies, an Enchanted Slumber with 6 lies and truths. This series is actually inspired by a song called Truth Be Told by Matthew West. Excellent stuff. I'm happy for you. Please keep us in the know. You know, we like to support and celebrate. All right, so let's see. Greetings, Thomas, and the room. A little late, but here. Hey, no judgment. We don't judge here. You know, we understand you have a life. A life. You're missing it. We're doing Dune today, bro. We are doing Dune today. All right. Okay, by the half light of... Okay. His room. Half lit. Lit? Yeah. By let's do this. Lying upon his bed. Let's go back up here. I kind of want to add. I'm gonna. I wanna play with this for a second. We'll get to that. Hey, dog, getting lost in the sand. No worries, Ro. I have a bucket in this pit. Get to work. Yeah, I've been trying to get the sand out of my nose. I got these 6 lies and truths from his truth be told day one. Davos videos last night. That's awesome. I like hearing when people get inspired by other art. You know, that's the whole purpose of art, right? Is to inspire, to make us think, to make us feel. All right, leading down the vaulted passage by Paul's room. Yo, inner crossing, the old crone. Peered in at him, only for a moment, laying upon the bed. She came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. All right, there we go. We got that part in. I feel good about that. Okay. Let's get into his room, half lit by a Is this a word? Suspenser. I think that's world. That is definitely world building. Dispenser lamp. Yeah, that is. So the spelling would have to be ignored. Don't change the spelling because it is, it is as it is. Just like back Luke Skywalker. All right. Just like the Baggers Canyon back home. All right. Okay. Did we do the dim? Yeah, dim and hung near the floor. Obviously, I'd have to, go through and do some editing and stuff like that, but I'm not getting to that yet today. I'm also doing another writing sprint, wonderful, with Sophie Van Ahn on my iPad. So it's a double writing sprint day for me. I'm outlining my series in a novelist app on my iPad. That's awesome. You got to keep it up, right? You got to keep doing what you're doing to make it happen. All right, so we're almost there. We're almost to the bottom. We flew through this. I think we went a little quick. Her bulky shape. Stood at the door. One step ahead of his mother. Yeah, okay. Actually, I want to switch. So Paul. All right, she came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. His room half lit, dim, and hung in a... Caught in the corner of his eyes. A bulky shape. Standing at the door, one step ahead of his mother. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm switching POVs, right? So they say you can't do that, but you can. There's a roving third person. Again, if you're working with cinematic, there's third person limited, third person omniscient, right? So how do you move the camera around? Well, in this case, we had the camera follow the woman. Then we used the transition of Paul, and now we're in his room, half lit by a suspended lamp, dim and hung near the door. We are letting the POV move into Paul making a decisive choice. We are in his POV now because Paul caught in the corner. The corner of his eye, a bulky shape standing at the door, one step ahead of his mother. The old woman. The old witch shadow. Hair matted like spider webs. I like this line. I'm keeping this. Hooded. This is a good line. Round darkness features. Eyes like glittering jewels. Okay. So what is it? The old woman was a witch. Okay. The old witch chateau. The old witch shadow. Hair matted like spiders. Hooded around dark. The darkness features. Eyes like. Okay. Alright. There we go. And then we need the line, right? Is he not small for his age, Jessica? Alright. She asked, her voice wheezed and twanged like an untuned ballad. By the way, I'm just noticing now, so the similes or the comparisons, usually in writing they tell you don't do it so close, if you're gonna do it, it's okay. But again, if it's working for the flow of the narrative and it's not, the thing is, you don't want to create repetition that becomes exhausting. So if everything was like this, like a dragon's scale on the ruff of the hand as they sipped at their tea, the mix of tastes reminded them of the like of flowers. Then it starts getting a little weird. He writes from an omniscient POV. I would agree with that. I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm trying to write just in the POV in general, but there is a thing called roaming third person, which could be close to what he is writing it anyway. But I want to. The difference between roaming and omniscient is omniscient has direct insight to characters, to all characters, whereas the roaming third person basically is fitted and limited. So we only know what the character the camera is on is feeling, but not necessarily thinking. Omniscient allows you inner thought, but you are right, because this is the omniscient element. Just for anyone who's trying to understand POV, I took that out. I took the omniscient out, and I stuck it into my style of writing. I'm trying to stay as close to the third person that they're doing, but I'm playing a little bit more in my comfortable stuff, my comfort zone. So yes, what I have marked here, this is what makes it omniscient, third person omniscient, because they are telling us stuff that characters might not necessarily know about, and they're informing us directly. So Afghani, great call on that. But just as an aside, I am switching that up in my example to kind of like keep it going. All right, she asked. Her voice was okay. She asked. Her voice wanged. Oh, twanged. I think yeah, wang tonight, like an untuned ballad. She asked. All right. I could even do this. That's cleaner. Okay. I don't like omniscient either. I'm on side with you. The only reason I don't like omniscient is because it feels so distant, and like if I really wanted to write with that sort of clarity, I would just go first person and just stay close to the main POV, the MC, whatever. It's just I don't like the asides, and I think that's what pushes me away. Like I like exposition through character exposition and not narrative exposition. So I think omniscient sort of kind of lends itself to that narrative exposition where it's always doing these asides and stuff like that. But anyway. All right, let's do a quick spell check, and then we'll read it. Did that in 40 minutes? Oh, probably a little less than that. But all right, let's see. The winds over ship's door. The wind. Let's do blasting from her ship's door. Okay. Castle. Okay. The heat. Unbothered by. Yeah. All right. Valued. His room. All right. His room. Half lit by this one. We're gonna keep. We're gonna. I can't. Dimmed. Okay. Dimmed and hung. Okay. There we go. Boop. All right. Let's do it. Let's read it. Today I started my first writing collab, and we are going to write a murder mystery anime style novel. Ooh, that's exciting. I'm excited about that. Please keep us in the know with that, my friend. Keep us in the know. Watch Pluto for inspiration. Okay. Pluto. M. We can build sandcastles until the sandworms show up. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's do it. We're going to read it. Are you ready? All right, let's do it. We're gonna read it. I'm having trouble seeing the screen. I will tell you and keep you up. All right. How we doing here? Okay. Sand tossed around her long black robes, forced in the wind blast. Oh. Yeah. I always like to check the spelling because I don't have spell check on this thing. All right. Sand tossed around her long black robes, forced in a flurry. Forced in a flurry of the harsh wind blasting from her ship's door. Gas lashed out, blowing out around the landing pad. Let's say smoke. That makes more sense. Smoke lashed out, blowing out around the landing pad. The old woman walked off, confident, slow, and unbothered by the heat of Arrakis. The pile of stone before her laid the foundation of Castle Caladan. It served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations. The old woman cooled in her sweat, the change of weather teasing at her. Subtle breaths of air filtered under her robes and around her hood. Stone carved against stone, drilling out as the side door opened in front of her, leading down the vaulted passage by Paul's room. In her crossing, the old crone peered in at him, only for a moment. Laying upon his bed, she came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. His room, half lit by a suspensor lamp, dimmed and hung near the floor. Paul caught in the corner of his eyes a bulky shape standing at the door, one step ahead of his mother. The old witch shadow, her matted like... Oh, wait. The old witch shadow, hair matted like spiderwebs, hooded around the darkness of her features, eyes like glittering jewels. Is he not small for his age, Jessica? Her voice wheezed and twanged like an untuned balisette. Okay, there we go. So I took the original that I read in the beginning, and I adjusted it into my voice. I'm happy with it for now. Obviously, I would need to go back and do a second draft, a revise, clean things up, etc., etc., etc. But as a first draft of taking what we've used, obviously I'm slightly longer than the original. Let's see. Okay, 211. Okay, and this is 175. A couple things I left out was definitely this. Okay, and then I left out the context of this, which I would explore personally in the leading scene. Like as the scene develops and there's conversation or whatever the case may be, this stuff would unfold just naturally within the dialogue and the narrative itself. It wouldn't necessarily be an aside. With that said, I think we got everything. I added a little bit more. Instead of doing this opener, I allowed it to be she actually walked off the ship, or she's at the bottom of the ship, and then she's heading towards the castle. Then she's in the side door, and now whatever the case may be. Any thoughts and questions? What we got here? I can promise lungworms. If you want to ride a sandworm, I'll applaud from a distance. I love it. All right. Any thoughts, questions, or you want to understand what's going on here? Please feel free to ask me some questions. We got about 15 minutes before we're going to jump onto the poll. So if you haven't chosen a poll answer, feel free to click the poll. Poll is, what's the hardest part of creating an antagonist? We'll talk about that in about 15 minutes. But more importantly, let's get back to the lesson. So before I go into explaining anything, do you have any questions specifically about how I change it, why I change it? Do you have thoughts or opinions? Is there something that I wrote that maybe stood out a little differently than how the original was, etc., etc.? Hey, Richard, what's up? Dune is a book I notoriously dislike, so anything must be an improvement. That's funny. Fair enough. But as an exercise, remember, this wasn't necessarily be like, look, I can write. It was more or less showing you that, when we're like worried about people taking our work, they're going to take our ideas. At the end of the day, they're never going to be able to write it through your perspective, through your voice, through the things you care about. I kept this focus on a limited third person on the old lady, and then I switched it over to Paul, and that's a part of my voice. The style in which I wrote it, where I play with the immersion, where I'm moving the narrative through the experiences and choices of the characters to have more of a story, fits firmly into my voice. The cinematic element is that you can kind of picture what's going on, and I use a slightly elevated tone in my writing, which is lyrical but not purpley. So I try for clarity, and I try for a little bit of art, because I come from a music background. I like lyrics. I like the lyrics. Anyway. All right. Well, thank you, Richard, for having some input or back, anything. If anyone else has anything else to say, boop, boop. Even the first paragraph is a lot better. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, again, my goal, I don't know if you were watching from the beginning, but, my goal was, this to me is exposition. And again, I consider this narrative exposition. Character exposition is when it flows through the emotional choices and experiences. So for me, I was like, how do I want to open this up? I want to open it up with movement. I did it also with the Lord of the Rings the last time we did this, where Lord of the Rings is basically like 4 passages of just exposition. And I was like, how do I put this into movement? And I just created a movement with Baggins climbing up the side of the hill to talk to them. Hey, by the way, I have a party coming up. So that's just something I like to do personally. I like movement. Even the opening of my epic fantasy for the prologue has a movement, but it's movement through words, like words are being scribed in a book. And the first chapter has movement through physical choice. And I just kind of like to have things in motion. That's just really what one of my likes. So, yeah, in the original, you could easily do without that first paragraph and start with the second paragraph. Oh yeah. Like if it was just this, yeah. It was a warm night at Castle Caledon, in the ancient pile of stone that had served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations bore that cooled sweat feeling it acquired before a change in the weather. I'll be honest, I would probably just start with this. This is a good passage, though. This has a lot of good stuff in it. But at the same time, I don't know, I might start. The old woman was let in by the side door. But I like, this sets the stage, the scene. But it's only there for like 2 seconds. So that's why I sort of made it like she was going up to the castle. So it felt like it was a choice, and that she was witnessing the castle. And then because she was witnessing the castle, she's processing this information, and it's not necessarily being told as an aside. So that's why I made that choice, where I was like, because in here, this is more telling than it is showing, per se. Except for this, the bore that, right? Though I'd argue this is telling. So I try to do that too. I try to put any quote unquote exposition through the characters, so it's more like they're processing the information and not necessarily informing or dictating. Like, because this comes off now as like she has the aside, like, oh, it served the Atreides family. Like, she's making a judgment call now, on the castle and the family and their history, which, by the way, is important because remember, spoiler alert, Paul was manufactured to be who he is, and for generations, the Atreides family have been being manipulated to ultimately create this false prophet that has been being pushed by this old lady's people. I could be wrong on that. I could be completely misreading the entire thing, but that's my understanding of it. So at the end of the day, she would have that judgment on it, like, oh yes, it has. So that is a form of seeding now, because if we look at that, it has the subtext of that seed. So they would be well, informed. But also, they're historians, right? They keep track of the royal families and they manipulate the royal families. So that's just another example of seeding that this is their area of expertise. So that's why I really like character exposition, because anything that unfolds through the emotional experiences and choices of the characters tells us so much, even if we're not aware of it right away, because as we read the book, and let's say we go back and read the book again, we're reconceptualizing what we just experienced. We're like, oh wow, this was always there, and for me personally, I enjoy that in books when you can read it a second time, and now it's almost like a different read because you know so much. It's one of the reasons why, like, the way I'm writing my the Maven Wars, the series, is every book you read, you can go back to the earlier books and reread it again, and it's almost a new experience because there's so much reveal. Like, we consistently reveal more and more information, and we get different POVs or perspectives of things that may or may not have happened either in the past before a book happened or whatever the case is. So recontextualizes the way we look at characters and understand them. But the same could be said with the book itself. When you finish the book is going to, the whole second and third the second and third act is going to divulge information that makes you go, wait a minute, reading these first chapters of Act 1 is now different. And then, wait a minute, now that I know that, there's stuff I would give as examples in the book, but it would give away too much plot. But nonetheless. All right. I guess that's it. I could give the floor to everyone for the next couple minutes, or we could go right to the poll. It's your choice. It doesn't taste so bad once you get rid of the, I brushed my teeth before I drank this taste. What we got here? We had a fair few. Hello, Houston. I'm going to need a second with that one. Excuse me. Let's see. How do we say that? My brain can't make out those letters. Oh, wait.
Hallucinogen.
Oh, hallucinogens. See, I know that word, but my brain is looking at it going like, what is... All right, back in 65, could explain the first paragraph. Oh, that's... Okay, that's accurate. Jeez, could explain the whole... What I like about the worms is, how do they move forward? Because worms got to do this. Is the sand shooting out their ass because it's like propelling them? I'm just saying. If you write enough of them, you can be an expert at teas too. Expertise. You, sir, I commend you. I've been reading some terrible books in the last few days. When you say terrible books, are you saying books that have been traditionally published and they are terrible, or are you saying you've been giving books that aren't traditionally published a chance and they are terrible? Like, what is the context of that? And are they older books? Are they newer books? Are they contemporary? Like, what's the deal? Let us know. I really like to do that. Well, that's coming through. Let's look at the... all right, so the poll today was, what's the hardest part of creating an antagonist? All right. So we have giving them a good motivation, making them feel scary, avoiding a cliche backstory. Why that has 0%? Because, sometimes the backstories don't exist for antagonists in some books, and you're like, who was this person before the book? Giving them, and then finally giving them a satisfying defeat. All right, let's do it. We're gonna end the poll. Actually, I can leave it up there. No, I'll end it. Okay, boom. So 75% of you chose Giving them a good motivation. All right, let's talk about that. Oh, we got a comment. Books on Book Bounty, if you know what that is. New books. It happens. It happens, you know. But to be honest, it takes about 5 to 10 books to really find your voice if you haven't really been practicing the craft in general. And most writers don't practice their craft. They practice while writing books, but they don't do like hone exercise. Like when I learned guitar, I did hone exercises. I did finger picking, and I wasn't trying to learn a song. I wasn't trying to write a song. I was just like, let's go through finger exercises. Let's go through, modes. Let's go through whatever, chord changes. Let's start with get to complicated chords. So when I started writing, I did the same thing, and a lot of my writing friends, and both author and in screenwriting, like the goal is to write, to not practice only when you write. So a lot of times our practice is limited to writing a book. So the rule of thumb is the first 5 books will suck, but you'll have your voice by your 10th book. So that's why they say just write your books, just get your books out. However, if you study writing, if you study story and narrative, and you study other mediums for story like poetry, or ways lyrics flow, the way film and television work, all these things, short stories, everything. If you consume that, not necessarily that you have to read all the time, because I also don't believe that if you don't read, you can't be a good writer. But there's other ways to absorb what writing is. But at the end of the day, writing a book is not the same as honing your skill. But if you just and only write your book because you don't have time for the other stuff, it will take 5 books to sort of get good, and it'll take 10 books to really discover your voice. Or at least that's the easy way to look at it. I chose a satisfying defeat. Satisfying defeat. I think you and someone else may have chose that. Giving them a satisfying defeat. What do we got here? If I want to start with one of my books, like book 5, is it okay to see if I could publish it like it's my first book? Well, every book you write should feel like its own book, even when it's in a series. The things you can get away with is sort of not doing a full introduction. So if you're on book 5, or even 3 or 2, you do not have to reintroduce the characters. You do have to reintroduce them to the new narrative. So if you spend book 1 going through who a character is, their backstory, all this stuff, you don't use book 2 to do flashbacks to book 1, or like re-explain things that were already explored in book 1. Let the new book feel like its own book, and let the exploration of that character be the foundation of who they are. So basically, context and setup. I thought, all right, so there we go. I'm going to go into them in a second. I find if I read and read and read and read and read, I forget to write. See, so there you go. Read book, write a book. I'm a audiobook kind of guy because I have dyslexia. But I studied, because of screenwriting and film, television, theater. I wrote so many screenplays. I really honed down on narrative structure, outlining, all that for years and years and years. I did comic books. So I studied different areas of writing, and that narrative understanding and watching and dissecting story is really what led me down the road to embrace basically how I outline and how I look at narratives. As far as long-form narrative goes, that's something that I literally sat to the side and worked on. I sat there and said, how do I write an immersive experience about my day? How do I, what is the taste of, Gatorade against the brushing of my teeth? And I did focus practice with that. But anyway, all right, so let's talk about it. What's the hardest part of creating an antagonist? And we have number 1, giving them a good motivation. I agree with that. So, not enough time for me to read as much as listen. Yeah, again, listening is the same as reading, in my opinion. If you're going to listen to books, you are reading the books. You're just not... The only thing you might not be doing is reading to see structure and formality and format and everything. But if you listen, and you're listening and you're understanding, it's like watching a movie. If you're watching a movie, you're still able to understand the narrative structure. Just because you're watching it doesn't mean it won't. I can't make sense of this because I didn't get to read the script. I listen while cooking. I cook while listening. Is that the same? All right. So let's get into it. Giving them good motivation. So I'm going to give a brief synopsis on each of these, just to sort of like give anybody and everybody a little insight into it. But at the end of the day, what is it? Because book 5 is called Guilt and Guilt. So why I asked that question with a lie? Guilt is just your burden to bear, and truth, grace tells a different story. Again, you could do whatever you want. You could publish the 5th book as the first book, but again, it must feel like it's a standalone book. All right, now back to the thingy. So real quick, giving them a good motivation. So when you're writing your antagonist, if their motivation on the page is, I just want to do this thing and win, that's where we start seeing the motivations falling apart. What you need to do is, let's say you write the whole book and you don't know what their motivations are. Let's start there first. So you write the book, and to you their motivation is to let's say Loki just wants to take over New York City in the first Avengers movie. So his motivation is, I just want to take over New York City. All right? But maybe you approach it like, oh, it'd be really great if Loki, because he's a god, he takes over New York City. And that is the starting point. So then you write that book out and you finish it, and then you go, all right, he's making choices to take over the city. But why? Right? And then you have to go deeper. You go, who is he connected to in that story? He's connected to Thor. What led him to this moment? Well, we got to look at the first Thor movie. And you start connecting and threading and seeding stuff to other characters. And you say to yourself, what is the emotional connection to the other characters in the novel? Are they directly in path with this character, or they don't know what's going on? Like they're just, the protagonist is over here, the antagonist is doing something, and the protagonist is like, I don't know who that is, and they don't know who I am, but I got to stop them. Is it like that, or do they know each other? But at the end of the day, let's say the protagonist doesn't know the antagonist, and the antagonist doesn't know the protagonist. But the antagonist still has a relationship with somebody that might not even be on the page anymore. For example, Odin is not on the page in Avengers, but Odin is directly connected to Loki's motivation. Because remember at the end of Thor, right? He was like, I did it for you. I did it for everyone. I did it for them. Right? And then he's like, no, you did it for yourself. And he just wanted to be seen. He just wanted to be equal. And Loki just lets go of the thing, and we think he dies. Spoiler alert. So right off the bat, now Avengers has a little bit more motivation. So when you're looking at the beat, you go, okay, what is their connection to a relationship or relationships? If you can't connect them to the protagonist, you have to think about other relationships that led them to this choice, okay? And it can't just be their mother and father were bad to them. Well, they used to get beat when they were a child. All right. For studying, I should read, though. Well, that's the thing. Like, when you're reading, you can catch things. But, again, moving to the thing. So that's the first step in finding a strong motivation, is what is their connection to the relationships of the protagonist. If there is no relationship to the protagonist, a relationship to a character that may not even be on the page, but is a part of their history. The second thing is the outcome. What is their motivation to the outcome connected to the future? Because remember, when your story ends, theirs continues. When two people fall in love in a movie, it doesn't end right there. Like, they fell in love. We just don't get to see the rest of their future. We don't get to see it. We can just assume they're going to happily ever after. Right? Because, in Pretty Woman, he shows up with the limousine. He climbs up the thing. He's afraid of heights. So, there's a character growth. He grabs her, and then they kiss, and it's like, I couldn't find any horses, but I found a white limousine, and then it ends, and you're like, they're going to be so happily ever after. And we don't have to see the rest of it. But you have to think beyond that as a writer, because that adds to their motivation, right? That character was so disconnected, the male character, Richard Gere's character, that he was finding ways to break past his own fears, literally his own fears with the height and his restrictions and his coldness because of his relationship to his father, and you talk about my first company I ever bought and sold and took apart was my father's, right? But more importantly, the relationship with Julia Roberts' character opens him up, and he likes that feeling. He wants that feeling. He wants to be a better person. He wants to explore that world where he's not who he is. And what does he end up doing in the movie? What's his growth? He changes. He goes, instead of buying this business that they're trying to buy, why don't we help your business? We're going to buy your business. We're going to come in as partners, and we're going to help develop this company, right? So there's a lot of change and a lot of growth there. But all that comes from their direct relationship to the Julia Roberts character, to their father, to their lawyer business partner, who's Jason Alexander. All right? But we, looking past the end of that movie, we know he's thinking, his motivation is, that's who I want to be. I want to work. I'm not going to be there at the end of this movie, but I'm going to be at the door of there. And I want to take my life forward with this wonderful person, and I want to get rid of the lawyer, and I want to start a better business. And once the movie's over and the credits are done, I know that I'll be moving forward into this life, and I get to explore it. And it's a story we don't get to see, but it becomes a new story, right? So that's the second form of motivation. So you got relationships, and then you got what's to come. What are they trying to succeed at? To see tomorrow, to see the future, okay? And I got a little bit more, but let's... Must admit, I've now started to read with intent, which gives me a whole new perspective. That is a great way to read, especially if you're a writer, if you're reading with intent. If you're purposefully looking for phrasings, like we do. Like if you watch the prose on prose series that I do, where I break down the prose and I talk about like the logical narrative movement writers are using, or, how they break the rules, they use the see and listen and, right? If you start doing that, if you start analyzing the pieces, it'll really give you insight into how to control it. So that's just, but I also do recommend you read for pleasure too, even if it's listening to audio, because sometimes, you got to shut the brain off and just have fun. I know it's not related, but the first Thor movie makes no sense because Odin banishes Thor for being unworthy, when in the end of the movie we learn that Thor was right all along, but no one cares. I'm not a fan of the first Thor movie, but I will say that Odin banished Thor knowing that Thor would find his truth. Like, Odin believed in Thor, but Thor didn't believe in Thor. Thor knew in his mind that he was right. That, by the way, this has nothing to do with Loki or the Frost Giants. It has to do with Thor thinking he's right, and he's supposed to become the next king. So he doesn't he's acting before thinking. He's not looking at all the pieces. Now, as far as he was right the whole time, the only reason the Frost Giants were doing what they were doing is because Loki was manipulating everything behind the scenes. Thor had no idea that Loki was involved in everything. He just thought the Frost Giants were going to do what they were going to do. But what he didn't realize is his own half-brother, his adopted brother, was manipulating the whole thing. But he was manipulating because his goals, his motivation was ultimately to get Thor kicked out as a joke because he's a prankster, a trickster. And he was like, oh, then I could become king. But when Thor found his worthiness, it was all part of the plan. Odin knew that he had it in him. He just needed to be humbled. That's my humbled opinion. But then Odin put the fate of Asgard in danger for this silly lesson that could have failed. Again, Odin didn't know Loki was manipulating the Frost Giants, but Odin knew the Frost Giants and he had an agreement. It wasn't until Otis went into the deep sleep, right? The Odin sleep, that I know I'm a nerd. It wasn't. It happens. The Odin sleep, okay? That Loki took advantage of this and was like, you know what? I'm gonna have the Frost Giants come into Asgard so I can defeat the Frost Giants and prove that I, Loki, am worthy, and then be like, Father, I saved you. I did it. I stopped the Frost Giants. And he's like, I did it for you. I did it for all of you, them. And then Odin's like, no, you did it for yourself. And Loki's like, I'm out. And he just dropped himself. So it's a little. Again, I am not a fan of the first Thor movie or Love and Thunder, but it is there. There is a deepness there. All right. So real quick, I just want to summarize. When it comes to finding a good motivation for your antagonist, remember it's relationships either with the protagonist or protagoni. Okay. If not with them, then with somebody that's off the page. Okay. That motivates them to be their behavior. And then, of course, what is their future beyond the narrative? If I was to come up with a third point of motivation, it's internal struggle. Okay? So those two things are external. They're relationship. They're external. You know, they're dealing with the external truth of the future, and then of course the relationship, but the internal element as well. Their internal desire, what will be fulfilled within them to take for Loki to take over the world. But we learned that it's greater and deeper than I just want to take over, New York. So you have to think a little deeper than that. So you always go to people, the relationships, you do the future to be that we won't see, and then you look deeper inside. What is their goal for change or development? So that would definitely help you give your antagonist a little bit more dimension, that three-dimensional element. That's one of the three things. Because their motivations have to be beyond the act itself. It can't just be because the plot dictates that Loki must take over New York City. So you have to look at it like that. I like the movie. It's just that the detail is overlooked. Love and Thunder is another level. Love and Thunder is absolutely another level of terrible. I would say rewatch Thor if you can handle it, because it's difficult to watch that movie. Again, there's a lot can be taken out of that movie. But if you watch it again, just pay attention to their motivations. You'll see that there's a lot more going on. It's technically a complicated movie. If you go down deep enough, as with any story. I mean, it's no Shawshank Redemption, but you know what I'm saying. I like the movies better than they treated them as aliens. Like the movies better when they treated them as aliens. Aliens instead of God, but they're still considered gods through mythos. But they're considered aliens because they're from another planet. Asgard is another planet. It's a weird looking planet, but because the seven realms. I do like the science and magic and all that stuff kind of thing, but I think the problem with the MCU is that it's just become so massive that it's almost become convoluted in its own exploration. But anyway, all right, what else we got? We got I'm gonna just drink my tea. What are you talking about? The Marvels was amazing. That was the best movie ever. No, it wasn't. Okay. We're gonna move on because I can talk for days on, because I am it doesn't matter. Also, discover the downside to world building a whole world before you start writing your story. If you lose it, there's no corner of your mind dark enough to hide it. That's fair. Yeah, we talked about that. It's better to just sort of like have a loose idea of your world and then allow the narrative to build it. But here's another something you should know is have backups. Like I have everything on Google Drive private, by the way. If you have it on your Google Drive private, where you don't allow people to share, the files, AI, it's not using your stuff to train AI as it's saying. But if you have it as anyone with this link can look at it, then AI can look at it. But I will say, so I have it on Google Drive. But I also have, I save all the files on my computer as well. I have two places. I have two different hard drives. Anyway, what's the other thing we have? Giving them a satisfying defeat. Yeah, all right. So this is a good one too. No wonder it's number 2 in the choices. But giving your antagonist a satisfying defeat. First thing you have to look at is what is the relationship between the antagonistic force and the protagonist. And the reason you have to look at that is because the antagonist's defeat must absolutely, without a shadow of doubt, elevate the arc of the character. Whether the antagonistic force is nature, like they're dealing with what's that movie with Gyllenhaal, Edgerton? Not Edgerton. Jake Gyllenhaal world-ending movie is The Day After Tomorrow. So, in The Day After Tomorrow, the satisfying defeat is basically how they survive the cold. The climate change, they're getting, the ice age is starting. So the reason it's a satisfying-ish ending for a movie like that, because it's a world-ending movie, is ultimately the relationship between the characters and the antagonistic force. So one of the relationships is the father character being a scientist and dealing with the politics of it all, but also, more importantly, their interest in getting to their son. The son, their interest is in surviving, and they basically become a smaller version of their father because they're doing what they can to keep everyone alive on the small end, the low end. All while this antagonistic force comes at them. The reason they survive, well, because of those relationships. Relationships have so much value to a lot of these things. Every aspect of narrative is useless without plot and story. Plot is the world is freezing over, we're getting an ice age. Story is the relationships between characters, the choices they're making, the emotional experience of that. All that stuff drives and makes it more satisfying. So the deeper you can create these relationships, the more satisfying anything will be. Now, let's say your antagonistic force is just the villain of the week. If you've ever watched the Flash TV series, okay, what makes the first season fantastic? What makes the first season with Thawne so good? Well, we get a whole season of watching the protagonist and the antagonist building a strong relationship. Okay, there's the mentor, it's the father figure, it's, walking them through it, and then the devastation of learning the truth and then having to deal with that truth. And what makes it a satisfying ending is we, the audience, are on that path. We had no idea that Thawne, spoiler alert, or well, it's not really spoiler, but the guy in the wheelchair is indeed a speedster, Thawne. We didn't know that, and when Flash discovers it, we discover it, and we feel betrayed too. So obviously, we want to see it unfold as it does. And then when we learn that the speedster, Thawne, is the one who killed Barry's mother, of course we're rooting for Barry. So there's so much emotional truth between the connections and emotions that are wrapped up in those relationships with the characters and ourselves. So a satisfying defeat comes through the emotional connection we have with the characters. One of the things, I miss floppy disks. I do too. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like a VHS, but smaller. All right. As if anyone knows. Relationship is ultimately the meaning of life. 100%, Ro. 100%. Yeah. The thing is, to have a satisfying defeat, we have to understand and be emotionally connected to the characters involved and everything that's happening. And the only way we get connected to them is watching them grow, watching them experience things, watching them making choices that are earned, right? Things have to unfold through those behaviors. I will also add, more importantly, when it comes to a satisfying defeat, if it is just a victory, it's not interesting. It must be emotional. There must be a lesson learned. There must be growth to the protagonist. Whether it is the cold coming in, the climate change is coming to kill the world, and the character grows from that by becoming a leader, by doing what they can, by surviving, by having agency, to them fighting, say, Loki, and Loki ends up realizing that he made a mistake, and they have to destroy the Tesseract, the aliens, or whatever. So it is all about that emotional truth, that a relationship. You have to do that. Making them feel scary, believe it or not, tension, stakes, and threat. Since we have 8%. I'll go into that. Let me just read this. I thought The Flash was terrible, but I kept watching only to find out what comes out of what you described. But that's what made the first season so good. is because it left us with questions and we liked seeing their relationship build. And then one thing led to another and we're like, whoa, this was like fun. But then, then there was season 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then 6 and then 7. And I was just like, it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I will say I think it's season 3 with the Tinkerer or something. The guy, the brain guy that's like in a wheelchair. That was a good one. I also kind of like Zoom, I guess, I don't know. The first season though was on a writer's standpoint, the first season of Flash is a masterclass in writing a series. As far as performances go, as far as special effects, as far as directorial elements, that's all. That's off the table. What I'm talking about is if you can just analyze the writing, the scripts and stuff like that. It's really just a fantastic masterclass in writing. But let's get back to making them feel scary. Tension, stakes, elevation, right? The unknown is what makes something scary. The more tension of the unknown not being revealed makes it scary. However, you do want to not only reveal a little, but you also want to elevate the stakes. If we go back to the Flash show, that's a great example of making them scary. The my brain just shut off. Dramatic irony. So the dramatic irony is that we, the audience, now know that Thawne is who he is, but Thawne doesn't know that we know. But, so that's, stakes go up a little bit. There's a little bit more tension, right? Because Barry's like, I can't do anything. I know it's him. Maybe I don't have all the proof, but I know it's him, and I got to figure it out. Then it's a cat and mouse. Thawne is like, I got to keep him from figuring out. I think he's going to figure it out. Barry does figure it out, etc., etc., etc. Now, that's another movement of tension and stakes. But then Thawne knows, and Barry doesn't know that Thawne knows. You see? So the scary part is creating enough tension, context, stakes, and all that stuff, and then slowly revealing elements and allowing the dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is something the audience knows that characters might not know, or vice versa, by the way. You can have the reverse dramatic irony, where the characters know something you don't know, but it is playing out. All right. What we got? I like the first season of Flash as well. How about the 1990s Flash, huh? With Dawson's Creek's father as the Flash. I was addicted to that show, but I was also a kid. I was in the 90s. I was maybe 12, 13. I don't know. Good stuff. Anyway. All right. As far as avoiding a cliche backstory, no one voted for that. But as a quick aside to that, I would just say, put time into it. Make sure that everything has purpose. If it's just, hey, it'd be really cool if they were a scientist. Well, okay, why are they a scientist? That's what. Ask questions. Being a writer is asking questions and then committing to the answers, but also being willing to assimilate, adjust, and rearrange. Why would a man who can run at the speed of light be afraid of a man with an ice gun that shoots slower than a normal gun? All right, well, let's be fair. Cold in that show was great. Captain Cold. He was a great character. But to answer your question, Flash cannot travel as fast as light at the time the cold gun exists. But from a writer's standpoint, it's, well, all right. Well, Emma's bringing it up. She brings up Superman. Superman, how do you defeat Superman? Well, back in the day, Superman was a broadcast radio show. The person doing Superman's voice, he was getting a sore throat, and he needed to take some time off. So the radio show invented kryptonite because Superman nothing could hurt him. So they invented kryptonite, which then they put into the comic books, and then they put into the cartoons, and then they put it into the movies. But it wasn't until the radio show, the person who is not invincible and invulnerable needed a break. So they created kryptonite. So, sometimes the Flash is going to be just slow enough to be effective. But that's the reality of it. Who'd win in a race? Flash would win. It's already been finalized. Because Flash is the fastest man alive, especially if you're talking about Wally West. Wally West in the comics is the fastest Flash. Barry is a close second, and then the what's his name? The other one, all the Flashes. The what's his name? Jake Garrett. Jake Garrett is the he's kind of slow in comparison to Barry, Wally, but it's Wally, Barry, Jay, and then in the comics, Eobard Thawne is faster than the Flash for narrative purposes, but it's because he's using like the negative force or whatever. It's something else, anti-speed force or something. He's using something else, but Barry learns how to, in the comics, how to basically take speed from people, so that's how he like outruns Thawne. But Thawne is an amazing villain in the thing. But Flash has beaten Superman multiple times. So, also in the movie, the terrible movie of Justice League, where Superman is fighting off the Justice League. Kal-El, no! Oh God. Flash is faster than Superman, but Superman is like able to, like, his eyes look, and he's able to notice, and he's able to slowly move. But anyway, what do we got? Is this that blonde guy who wears knickers like those Manowar books? No. Barry Allen is a blonde, and Wally West is a redhead. Garrett, I think, has blonde hair too. Right? Jay Garrett has blonde hair? Jay Garrett. I think he has red. Oh, no, he has gray. No, he has brown hair. It's brown. But sometimes it's gray because he is portrayed as the older of the people. Jay Garrett. Kal-El. By the way, I do that all day at home. When someone says something or does something, I'm always like, Kal-El, no! If you've ever seen Justice League and they did like that insert shot, that was definitely... Ugh. She's like trying to tell Superman to stop. Kal-El. Anyway. Whatever. She makes money. So, she acts just well enough to not be fired, but not good enough to be considered a thespian in the world of acting. Anyway, what do we got? We got an hour and a half. We did pretty good today. Any questions, by the way? Any questions? Well, you guys are thinking of questions for your own writing. Whatever the case is, I'm going to do all the things. So let's see. Please bloop the beard, as well as blooping the like button. The bloops help. If you like the video and you subscribe to the channel, it builds the channel up and makes it what it is. So it definitely is extremely helpful. It's much loved, much appreciated. Because subscribing, all right, we've already passed the milestone of becoming monetized, and we're at 22 something. We have 2,200 subscribers. But it helps me keep the channel going. It helps push the channel, and then I keep making videos. I'm already working on next year's schedule. I will not be, how do you say, premiering all videos for the whole year, but I will be doing it weekly. However, all the videos will be recorded by the end of the year, so whatever the list is that I make. So if you have suggestions, feel free to message me either through my website, which is makearightleftheere.com. You could just be like, hey, it would be a really good video, blah, blah, blah. You could send it that way. You can leave comments on any of my videos and be like, oh, can you do a video on blank, blank, blank? Feel free. You don't have to do it right now, but it exists. What else? What's this? I slap it on the way in. It likes it. It likes it lots. You got to slap it on the... Who'd win in a... Roadrunner. The reason Roadrunner would win against Flash is because they have toon strength. Toon strength they have toon powers. They can do whatever they want. So there you go. How crucial is it to have an editor go through your manuscript? Extremely. Are you self-publishing, or do you want to try to get an agent? Well, actually, even if you're self-publishing, you should go through an editor. I would say there are at least 3 editors you need. You need a developmental editor, you need a line editor, and you need a copy editor. The developmental editor, I would go with them while doing the outlining if you can. If you've already passed the outlining and you've already written your book, your first draft, before you get to your second draft, I would hire, even technically on your 0 draft, you should be talking to a developmental editor. But you want to get them involved before you start really cleaning up your prose, because they're going to come in and fix up the foundational elements. Is everything connecting? How's it? Blah, 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 blah. The line editor is when you're done. Like once all your drafts are done, everything feels like it is and it should be, and all the arcs are working, all the plots are working. You did all your prose work. You got it where you want it to be. You feel comfortable with it. A line editor comes in and they're going to ultimately clean up your lines. They're going to work on grammar. They're going to work on word choice. They're going to try to create concise flow, etc., etc. They're probably also going to look for the logical narrative movement, like is everything connected? And then your copy editor is the last person. So it's developmental editor before you get into the deep of it, and then it's the line and copy editor, which are 2 different people that you usually jump on at the very end before you publish. So yes, crucial. Dune lives or lives, depending. What else? Oh yeah. We already talked about subscribe. Anything else? Oh yeah. My book is out. I know people watching right now are probably the only people who know about the book being out there. But you can go to makearightleftheere.com. Go to Make a Right Left Here, and you can purchase the book. I'm only talking about it because my people keep telling me, Thomas, you gotta push the book. I'm not a fan of pushing. If you buy it, you buy it, whatever the case is. But the support is wonderful. If you can't buy it, that's fine. But if you can share the post, that'd be awesome. Other than that, I have an update. This book is flying through. I am officially on chapter 15? 15? Yeah, I'm working on chapter 15. I already got people interested in that book. I cannot wait until the 27 plot point outline is done. I'm really excited about that book. That's the one that I'm really hoping gets done. Do you get a developmental editor for your books? That's a really great question. Because I am a developmental editor and I've been doing it for 20 years. I've been in the entertainment industry from the comic books and on. I do the developmental editing. So, Afghani, as you know, you watch the Sunday live at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you see how I write the book. Basically, I'm doing the developmental work early on. So the outlining. So the way I do the character arcs, the short form outline, and then the extended outline. And then I work on chapter outlines. It's thereafter that I would go and have alpha readers read the pages or the chapters that I basically outline. And based on their feedback, that's where I start doing the work. And then I develop those 0 draft outlines. And then from there, I'll write my first draft. But before I write the first draft, not only do I do broad general ideas and build on that, so I'm seeing more structure, before I get into prose and heavy prose, I have my alpha readers who are other writers and editors and stuff like that. But I'm not necessarily hiring them to be developmental editors. I'm hiring them to see things that I may have missed as just fellow writers and fellow editors. But I'm already doing the developmental work on the back end. So by the time I get to the first draft, it's already there. However, as far as line editing and copy editing goes, I don't do that myself. I have to have other people do that. Line editing, I do a loose line edit, like in my 3rd or 4th draft. But you still need someone to come in and be like, I gotta look at that. All right. How about when we were children and we wondered why the coyote didn't just jump up off the falling? Well, physics dictate that the inertia of movement is still held in the energy of the coyote's fall. However, the Pink Panther has proven that you could just step out of the house right before it hits the ground, and you'll be fine. So that's something to keep in mind. Something to keep in mind. Anything else? Oh, so if you haven't seen, I have a Patreon. And this book right here, Death of a King, I'm doing something with that. I'm going to have a tier on Patreon that, in fact, let me, this is the post. Anyone can see the post. You don't have to actually be a member to see the post. It's a free, everybody can see the post. But this, basically what I'm doing, I'll even do this. Boop, 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 boop. Let me do this. So what I'm doing is I'm going to release the short form, the extended, and then the zero drafts of this book. And then I'm going to start releasing the first draft, and then I'm going to release like the draft before I did the polished draft and all like the clean stuff. So I'm doing it because this particular tier, okay, is designed to help people look at the evolution. So it'll have my notes in it. It'll have, there'll be spoilers, but I think I'm going to try to hide the spoilers just so you could also still kind of enjoy the unfolding of stuff. But anything that's like a major spoiler, I'll probably black out or just take it out. But I'm not editing anything other than format. So I'll be really, this will be completely available on the 1st of September. But if you're interested, please let me know. This should be a fun tier. It'll be basically, I'll be releasing 2 chapters a week. This is sort of like what I'm going to try to do. So I'm going to try to do, once the short form and extended draft are released, I'm then going to release the zero draft and then like the first draft version of it. And then I'll just keep doing that weekly. And then once all that's done, then I'll start releasing the draft before polishing. And just to sort of give everybody insight into whatchamacallit, the process of writing. Because that's really, everything I do is about helping writers sort of see inside the system, and to not necessarily say this is the way to do it, like, hey, my way is the highway. It's to say, like, hey, you should do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but what does that look like? How do I do that? Well, I'm going to show you that. So not only on Sundays do I do the live Write With Me series, but you're also going to see a book that I've put a lot of effort into and energy into, and you'll be able to see the in-depth, because let's be honest, the Sunday videos, that's a good, quick insight. But the fantasy, the epic fantasy, that is based on a 5-book series. So there are notes in there that are sort of seeding and explaining and showing how I'm connecting things to create the series itself. But it's also a thicker book, so it has more involved in it. And basically, that's what I'm doing. So that exists. I will be releasing that in September. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm slowly scheduling and uploading everything into that tier, so that on the 1st, if anyone decides to join, you will 100% be able to see that unfold. I will also potentially by mid-2026 have the first book's polished version available for a chapter a week kind of sort of like tier as well. So that'll be a lower tier price than this particular one, because this one's more educational. So that exists. If you have any questions on that, you can just reach out to me through the MakeAWriteLeftHere.com. I think that's everything, right? Do we have anything else? Let's see. Anything else? Anything else? I'm looking at my screen here. Oh, I don't got anything else. All right. I had a lot of fun. Really. Much love to everybody. Again, congratulations on everything everybody's doing. We know we have, somebody's writing a book. They're working on their book. Afghani, you said you're also working on a book. I can't wait to kind of see what you got going now. Keep me in the drill. Keep me in the loop. I want to, let me hear what's going on. Ro, we've been talking. I'm happy to do whatever we can when the time comes. Everybody else, much love to everyone. And big shout out to writers, because without you guys, without writers in general, we wouldn't have art in the world. We wouldn't have stories. We wouldn't have creativity. And it is the power of story, the power of narrative that has been with us since the caves, and it is without narrative that we can't truly continue to keep great things alive. For example, when we write stories, those that we have lost are in those stories. I have my father in my stories. I have my mother. I have my uncles and aunts, and all their personalities feed and seed different personalities and characters. And it's their gifts and their memories that allow me to do what I do, and it is how we keep them alive. So it's something to believe in. All right, I got enough criticism from the beta readers, but I'm working on another book. Well, when your first book is out, the one you got the beta, and I want to know. I want to see your books. I want to love on your books. I broke through. Woo! I know that was loud, but I want to know. I want to see. That's. Woo! I got loud with that. I'm sorry, brother. 580. I broke through. Oh! You wrote 580 words today. Everyone, give Flowers a huge, big congratulations. That's fantastic. 320 is amazing. But 580, I'm very proud of you. That's an accomplishment. And then Afghani, who says, I will have to go back to the first one at some point. That's what she said. Well, whatever you do, I'm around. I'm here. Look, it's all about love and support here. Community. With that, I will see everybody. What is it? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are doing Write a Book With Me series, where it is concept to conception. We are flying through the second act with the 0 drafts. So let's see where that goes. Clap, clap, clap for Flowers, because I'm reluctantly crouched on the starting line. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time, boy.